Hello for 101 Small Business Mastermind, and we're live. And our scheduled guest, we couldn't get him on, but that's okay. We'll carry the show as we are. With us today, we have a new gentleman with us today, Gordon Kelly. Say good morning, Gordon.
Good morning, everyone.
And of course, we have our standard Frank. Frank, say good morning, Frank.
Hello, everybody.
And Dick, say good morning, Dick.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
And last week's guest, Phil, has joined us on the show, too. Say good morning, Phil.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. Okay, good. So today I want to cover a couple of things. From the internet side of life, in my C block, we're going to start, or D block, we're going to talk about driving traffic and what you do with all of that. But like last week, I think my prop was, remember when you were always a kid and you had show and tell, you always had to bring a prop? Well, good morning, Dick, my prop. So Dick went to a speed networking group, and for those that aren't familiar with speed networking, you have X number of minutes. In this case, it was 5 minutes, so 1 minute uninterrupted talk one-on-one with another person. At the end of 5 minutes, the whistle blows, and one person stays at the table, and everybody shifts and moves. You can cover a lot of ground with that. But Dick used our surfboard approach. Tell us your results, Dick.
Well, the results were quite satisfying. There were 13 people on the inside and 13 people on the outside. So I talked to 13 people in 26 minutes, and I really think, I'm going to talk a little bit more about networking later, but I go to a lot of network events, and I wish they were all like this because it's very, very, very efficient. But anyways, there's 13 of them. I'm an independent associate with Legal Shield, so I was talking about that. 3 of the people were already members, and 2 were committed to another person or talking to another person. So out of the potential 13 opportunities, it was down to 8. And out of the 8, I had 5 people request I call them, and they're interested.
How many people?
5 out of the 8. 5 out of the 8 available people, and they request I call because they're interested. I use the surfboard. You have a minute each, and so I gave a quick 30-second elevator pitch, and then just flipped over my surfboard and showed them what Legal Shield does compared to LegalZoom and regular attorneys. And the visual on that was amazing, and it just works a great deal. So I think networking is an important part of my business, so I was very pleased with the results there.
Yeah, I'll pop that up. I mean, those that are familiar with infographics, and infographics have been around forever, but it's odd how many people don't know about infographics and how they work from a pictorial standpoint to be able to get across the message quickly, easily, and succinctly. They're pretty clever, and of course I'll have or could you hold up the infographic side of your surfboard for everybody to see and capture it on some video here?
Let me get it.
Okay, and then these approaches like that are pretty clever, and I think the real key thing here is the infographic approach to helping get your idea of whatever your business is across in a networking way.
Can you see this one, Peter?
Yeah, hold it right there for a second and slowly move it up. You can see basically all the check marks are Legal Shield side of life. The rest of them are sparse, and that makes a great instant infographic. Okay, thanks, Dick. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And I'll have that up on the site too.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then I've been working with Frank Syringa. Say hi, Frank.
Hello, hello, hello.
Frank's got a great new product. He's working on basically this. And for those that know me, I'm per counterculture all the way across anyway. But Frank's counter to my counterculture. Frank is so far to the right or left of me, he's behind me completely, somewhere back there. And but using his technology, I told another set of stories this week in a networking format. I had, again, people lining up to talk to me. Now, I did blow it There was one case where Frank is always talking to me about raising the bar on competition, and I didn't do it. I just got caught flat-footed on that one, but that will never happen again, Frank, I promise you. But for those who we'll have more about Frank's program, but Frank's been doing phenomenal work. And on my side of life, one of the nice things about it in anybody's business, you're usually too close to your own business to see what it's all about. That's why you need coaches. And downstream, we're going to talk about Gordon is known as the legend and has coached many high-powered CEOs in his life. But a lot of times we're all too close to our business. We need coaches, we need mentors, we need people who can think out of the box for us. And Frank is certainly doing that for me. And we came up with the 4 pillars of some of the stuff I do. Clearly, I learn the competition of my clients, and that gives us a strategy to do something different on the web. I use tools to drive traffic. I get them to the website to convert them from visitors to clients, and then using social media, I keep the spigot of traffic heading into those websites. And so that was kind of a big wowie for me, is to get a chance. So I would encourage anybody that's here to learn about their business, maybe try to talk to Frank or some other mentor, to get outside of the techniques. They don't want to know how to build a watch. They ask what time it is. Frank's teaching us how to tell what time it is, and that's a good thing. So, all right.
I'd like to say something too, Peter, real quick.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say you're a mentor also. And for me, I look at you as sort of the same thing you looked at Frank. I look at you as the same way. One example, I remember last year you were telling me, Mark, maybe you should start going at businesses for your website, not just more or less sports. Look for businesses and stuff. And that kind of opened me up to that, and it's been working. It's been working quite well. So again,
you started the blog thing too. I mean, and that's in your particular case, having a blog and going and interviewing people that put them on your blog, they get to know you. Dick and I have started the Coachella Valley podcast, the CVP for short, and we intend to literally come in and do video podcasts for businesses throughout Coachella Valley. What are we doing, Mark? We're doing the same thing we talked to you about. Get to know them, build that relationship, and then you can ask them for business. And so we're walking our talk with that, and it should be a good bow wave for everybody. We'll get to know an awful lot of people through the chamber of doing these free videos, and videos are sexy. They sell. Get them up on their front page. Help them out a little bit. Let them know who we're all about.
And they're real. And they're real.
And absolutely. And we're going to use a lot of what Frank has talked about, is get their story, to tell their story. And I'm going to be the guy that's going to wade through the Control Alt Delete alt tags, SEO techniques and stuff to just make Frank go crazy here. You can watch Frank there. But we have to walk our way through their business, because they're going to want to tell us about their business, and that's not what we're after. We're after their story and why people want to do business with them. So that's going to be a challenge for both Dick and myself to do that as host, co-host, and then I think Dick will be doing some of these as well as just me doing solo, him doing solo, that kind of thing, so we have a mix-up. And I think Frank and I are going to try to do, Frank's going to be the interviewer for me as for infocard.cc, and we'll have that up for other, to see what we're going to go do, so that'll be good. All right, any other questions with that? If not, let's go over to Frank. And Frank, give us your twin. That's a ticker tape.
All right, this week's twin, this week in the news and small business lesson. This week's twin is, hey, Mayun, thank you for the small business lesson. Who is Mayun? Well, he was born about 50 years ago in China. And like most Chinese parents, his father beat him when he was growing up. And to say his life was a series of failures would be an understatement. He was a lousy student, but he was enthralled with the English language. Matter of fact, at 12 years old, now how's this for at 12 years old? 12 years old, I was collecting baseball cards. At 12 years old, he would bicycle 45 minutes each way to a hotel for tourists there in China, and he would give them free tours just so he could perfect his English skills. But he failed the college entrance exam twice and wound up going to the worst college in the area. He applied for jobs twice at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and he was rejected both times. He finally got a job after college teaching English for $20 per month. Now, maybe that was a lot of money in his province in China. I don't know, but that's not very much. In 1995, though, while working as a translator for a prospective Chinese-American business venture, he flew to America, and only when he landed did he realize the deal was crooked. But then it got worse. In Malibu, he was held at gunpoint by a gangster involved in a deal, and he escaped uninjured only by pretending to be interested in helping the gangster do business in China. However, and here's the key event, while in the U.S., he stopped by in Seattle and visited a friend, and there he was introduced to this thing called the World Wide Web. This is 1995. He got very excited. Upon returning to China, he invited his friends over to his house for a party to introduce him to this thing called the World Wide Web. But he had a slow dial-up, and it took 3.5 hours to download half a page. But he and his friends had seen enough. And 18 of them pooled their money, it was about $60,000, and they started their first venture. They called it China Pages, and they started building websites for Chinese companies. Interestingly, though, he cannot code, has no interest in technology, and the only technology he uses to this day is email. And yet he was this leader of this high-tech company. Now, you may have already guessed who this person is. His American name is Jack Ma. He is the founder of Alibaba, and as of last Friday with the IPO, he is now the richest man in China. Not bad for a kid who was a lousy student and had all those failures. There's a small business lesson. Now, there's many lessons we can learn from Jack Ma, but here's the one I picked. I think it's the most profound for small business owners. When Jack was asked, Jack, how are you going to compete with eBay? Here's his response. He said, eBay is very predictable. They have a lot of money. They are led by MBAs, and they follow very predictable strategies. And then Jack made his now famous quote. He said, eBay is a shark in the ocean. We are a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, we lose. If we fight in the river, we will win. Here is a small business lesson. Know your competitors. Do not battle them in their arena. Create your own arena and make them compete with you there. Since just about every small business owner has within their grasp a profitable market niche that they can dominate, what do you think Jack Ma would advise you to do? Open your own niche, dominate that niche, make them come to you. Play in your river, not in their ocean, especially if they're much bigger than you. And gentlemen, that is a small business lesson for this week. Thank you.
Very cool. You know, when we were talking yesterday, Frank, about competitive analysis, and you know, what I use that for, obviously, is to find out what the competitors are using technology-wise. What are their supposed niches? And I always say we have to come up with something different. Don't play in their world. So that fits in. That's good. I like that.
Jack Ma.
Very good, Frank.
Jack Ma.
Thank you.
All right. So, Dick, let's
Yes, sir.
talk entrepreneurialism, shall we?
Yes. I think I'd like to talk about two things. The first thing I want to talk about is an article that was in Forbes a little over a year ago, and I just read it a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was really a great article. And what they had is 18 very successful entrepreneurs at a conference, and the moderator of the conference said, "My question, when I have an audience of rock star entrepreneurs, is always this: if you were a 20-year-old just starting my first business, and you could give me only one piece of advice or wisdom, what would it be?" So I'm going to share the first two because they really go hand in hand with what we've talked about today. The first one is Claire Dreyer, who has got more certified specialties than I can read in the time frame, but you can find her at clairedryer.com. Her first one, which is really dear close to me, is the power of connections. It says, network, network, network. Make connections and keep a record of each person you meet. And here's some key words in this thing. Ask for their advice and help. Keep in touch with them along the way and build your network before you need it. Quality relationships are the key to the kingdom. And I think, I've evolved so much in my year and a half, 2 years of being in the home-based business with Legal Shield and starting the networking business that is foreign to what my whole business career was. And I used to walk in these networks, hand out my cards, and if I gave out 20 cards, I had a successful night. To the point where I really talk about Legal Shield anymore when I network. I'm trying to build relationships. I'm trying to meet people, and along with this Coachella Valley podcast that Peter and I are doing, we're going to be doing that. We're going to build friends. We're going to listen to the stories. We'll be helping each other, and I think anyone going into a network situation really needs to prepare before you go in, not to be the shark, not to be the guy who hands out the most cards. Hand out the least cards if need be, but make some friends. I've noticed over the last three or 4 months since I've changed my approach. When I go back, people are remembering me. They're talking to me. We're building relationships. Out of it are coming some leads. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But I think this is a really key thing. Build your network, make your connections, get to know the people. Don't try and sell them the first time you meet them. Maybe don't ever try and sell them, but just ask for their help. Ask for, if you know of anybody that needs legal assistance, if you know anybody that wants to start a home-based business, build that relationship. So that's point one. The second one is by George Shepard. It really goes on to what Frank just said. The number two thing is focus, focus, focus. Focus on one niche and become the expert guru in that niche with your brand. Don't get greedy. It's the reason most people quit by spreading themselves too thin. And like Frank says, you'd be the alligator in the Yangtze River rather than be the shark in the ocean. And I think I've learned that lesson because with the Legal Shield, I could sell 6 or 7 different types of product. And I'm really focusing on 3, and they're all kind of meshed together. So those are the 2 tips. I'll share more with you in future weeks, but I felt that these really fit the discussion we've had so far this morning. And I think network, and when you focus on what are your strengths, what do you want to accomplish, what's your target market, identify all those, and then focus on that. So that's it, Peter.
Let me jump in on that for a second. Part of a conversation. Well, there's 2 things I want to add to that. It's a buggy whip company story.
Yeah.
I'm sure Gordon knows this one.
Yeah.
There was a famous buggy whip company out of Chicago, I believe, that had it written in their charter that they will capture the entire buggy whip market, no matter what, and they will never lose their focus on anything else. Well, and they did that, and they went out of business because automobiles came by. They actually tried to change to work in the automobile world, but their charter was in fact so focused and so hard and fast that they could not change their focus from capturing being number 1 in the buggy whip sales business, and they did and went out of business. So I think there's some caution there about you could pick a niche, or if you're from Canada, a niche, and certainly conquer that with nobody who gives a darn. And so part of your, I think, and Frank, maybe you need to jump in here, but part of that is certainly you got to make sure you're going towards where the gold's at, not where the lead's at, so to speak. That's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was Frank talked yesterday about people when you meet them in a meetup situation, they really don't care about you, and they don't care about even what you're saying. And one of the ways that to get people out of that is ask them questions. Get them out of that hypnotic state. And certainly, I think, Dick, when you talked about, asking them questions and relating to them that way certainly helps to get them out of that trance. Frank, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. Couple. Let's go back to the niche thing. It is easy. In fact, it's too easy to pick an unprofitable niche. You know why? Because nobody's
Yep.
there, because there's no business there. So you've got to pick a niche that obviously has enough growth that you can survive and thrive. Number one. So the buggy whips, that's a prime example of a niche that was available because nobody wanted to go there because they saw what was coming down the line. I think the biggest and doing coaching with CEOs for a while there. I know they have a problem focusing when I hear this one phrase, and how many of us have heard this one phrase when we're talking about doing a plan, a business plan? Well, I don't want to turn away any business. I want to make sure I appeal to as broad a market as I can. That is a surefire way that this person is way too thin, and their odds of succeeding are a lot less because they're not going after that profitable niche. They're afraid they're going to lose that one deal that may give them $20 a month. Okay, but they're losing the focus. So you've really got to focus. And the other thing, Dick, that you talked about networking, and the thing I'm doing is all about networking. Like it's about the first 27 seconds. Yeah, when people ask you, what do? You know, the last thing they want to hear is what you do.
Yeah,
They
what do you do?
really don't care. What they're asking is there any way you could do something for me? And if you don't tell me in the first 7 to 10 seconds, I'm going to check out anyway. So you've really, especially in today's 140-character Twitter world, especially today in I can click you off anytime I want world, they take that with them to networking events, chamber meetings, or when you meet them standing in line at a Starbucks. So I think it's right on. I think we have to modify the way we prospect because people have changed the way they listen and pay attention.
Gordon, good stuff, Frank. Gordon, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. You worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of high-powered CEOs in your day. Did you ever run across anybody that was heading down the buggy whip company type of thing? How do you get them to open up their scope, or how do you get them to prove to everybody or themselves that in fact they're in a profitable niche?
That's a good question. I would say experienced many situations like that, Peter, over the years. And the only way you can break the ice is by peeling the onion to find out really why they're stuck, why they don't have the wherewithal to grow. Some of these companies have been doing maybe 4 or 5 million in revenue, some 10, 20, 30, 100 million, 200 million. But there's one common denominator, and that is the ego, not letting go, not giving themselves an opportunity to listen to good advice. And we overcame that in a manner in which we formed groups of people that would sit around a table, and invariably they didn't know each other personally, and we would have a chairperson that would sometimes be me, and facilitate dealing with issues. And you would be amazed in going around a table with all different people from different industries, talking and dealing with issues. For example, my bank just cut me off. Well, someone would ask, probably me, why did you do that? Well, I was selling a lot, and my overhead was increasing rapidly, and they used this term diminishing marginal return. And of course, he wasn't sure what that meant, but I think we all here know that when you grow too fast and your overhead starts to accelerate, you're passing your break even, you're passing and getting yourself into a position where you're trading dollars, and in many cases some companies go broke. So to get people to grow in a methodical manner, you do need, as Frank was suggesting, a business plan. You do need to enforce into the business plan a source and application of funds. In other words, where's the money coming from? Where's it going to go? How are you going to handle the money? And to get to that point with the CEOs, be they gentlemen or ladies, you have to peel the onion. And I had a a basic formula. I would ask them how they make decisions. I won't get into the detail right now, we don't have the time. We'd ask them about accountability. We'd ask them about growth. We'd ask them about are they isolated from their staff? Do they communicate well? And change. So those 5 words are comprised of the word magic. And I used to use that as a basic guideline for peeling the onion to get into the bowels of the business and figure out really why they're not growing, why they're not giving themselves an opportunity to grow. In many cases, it's as I said before, they're stuck because they don't want to let go. And if you can break through that, I'm sure, I believe most of you have experienced that in helping companies grow. I learned how to do this stuff by being CEO of 4 international companies. It does not mean I had the answer to all solutions, but getting into a group setting like we are today, we're open and free to give constructive input, constructive criticism, and we can all benefit from each other's experiences. I learned from Frank this morning, I learned from you, Peter, I learned from Dick. So this is a powerful thing. A group of men and or ladies, or mixed group, can make better decisions at the end of the day because of the input they get from their peers. And usually the people sitting around a table discussing issues are very frank and candid with one another. And I've heard CEOs tell each other, hey, quit with a story, give us the facts. Is it your problem? Is it your accountant's problem? You're blaming your executive vice president for all the things that are wrong in your company, but who's responsible? Who's got the bottom line? Well, it's me, they'll say humbly, and then we start peeling the onion with them and then get into that magic. How do they make decisions? How do they hold people accountable? How do they plan to grow? What's your business plan look like? Are you isolated? Do you isolate yourself from your staff and communicate? Many instances I've heard CEOs say, I don't need to talk to them. They've got all their job descriptions. Well, that's an attitude problem. So you peel the onion with that and discreetly as possible, with some firmness, explain to them what they're doing wrong. And of course, are you prepared to change? And that's one of the major contributors to people not being in a position to grow. I could go on and on for an hour, Peter, but do you want to hear more? Or?
No, I'm actually after one thing in particular. You must have had people that were claiming they had a niche market that didn't appear that they would have any. They could be successful at it in the sake of capturing a niche. For example, if you wanted to sell only black and white photos in a certain frame on the web. Is there really any money to that? And did you see other CEOs go, what are you doing? How's that work? Did you ever get any feedback like that at all?
Yeah, many times. You would ask the person that had the niche market idea, and if they were embarking on either raising capital or they had raised some capital, then they didn't know what to do next. Usually it was because they hadn't made a detailed plan. A detailed plan is nothing more than a living document, so it doesn't mean that when you put something down on paper in a way of projections and anticipated success, it doesn't mean it doesn't change. It changes almost every month, and that's where, yes, we've experienced a lot of people that just can't understand why they can't grow in a profitable manner, and that gets back to the group meetings and the like. So, does that answer the question, Peter?
Yeah. Yes. And let me drive on. So, like Phil, there's these. Speaking of niche markets, on the internet, just like Frank's twin today was a guy that did something that didn't exist before. So people have a hard time, obviously, maybe even understanding that. And Phil is in what we call in the business reputation management type of a business, and that's relatively new. So Phil, tell us just a bit again why reputation management is emerging, and what does it basically mean if we're going to try to capture that market to help people? Can you answer that?
Sure. more and more people. The reason it's emerging is that more and more people are embracing the new word of mouth. I mean, typically since the beginning of business history, uh, word of mouth referrals is what built businesses to what they are. I mean, greatly in numbers, businesses do rely on word of mouth to grow their business. Now that we've entered into the digital age, we have to use the tools and methods that are more accepted by the population, and that's using more and more people are using their cell phones to do everything. They're using them specifically to search for service providing businesses. And what can a business owner do to stand out from the rest of the crowd? Well, first of all, as if you didn't know, most internet users are impatient. We all have ADD when we go online. We want our information right now. We don't want to read. We want to skim through things. That's why videos work best. And one of the ways that people are determining whether or not they're going to select or choose one business over the other is to evaluate that business based on what others' experiences have been with that business. All right.
All right.
Online reviews show in the form of bright orange stars. They stick out on the search results page. They attract attention. In a matter of seconds, people can literally choose the best option for them based on what that overall average and the amount of stars is displayed for that search selection. So how social signals, how can social signals affect your business? Well, 70% of households use the internet as their go-to source when purchasing local products and services. Now, 94% of new customers who find local services use the search engine to find a business. Like I just said, they whip out their cell phone, they bring out their iPad, and they're going to the internet instead of the yellow pages, et cetera, et cetera. Now, 6 out of 10 people are going to literally choose that business based on their reviews. And if the business owner was sitting out in front of his office holding up signs saying, we're one of your own customers, patients, clients, tell the whole entire web that you're the best. And that's what we do. We enable business owners to utilize their existing client database to get those people talking and posting those great feedback online to use and leverage those great reviews to attract more business. And that's what our software does. We have a great software that enables businesses to easily and efficiently go after their existing customer database, request feedback for them, filter the negative feedback, and forward those others that leave the positive feedback onto major review sites like Yelp, Google, Yahoo, and so forth.
Okay, the thing I was after there too was that this is an emerging technology in one way. The old school was you always ask your friends, hey, did you have a good dentist? Do you have a good butcher? Do you have this? And and those are your reviews. But with the digital age now, we have all these review sites, usually called 411 sites, which is a cross between a search engine and a review site that has all kinds of data that unfortunately people run into first before they ever run into your website. And so managing your reputation online has become even more important on the white hat side of life. The black hat side of life, what the web has allowed people to do through Yelp and some of the other ones is put in bad reviews against their competitors. And that happens, and you don't even know it happens. And all of a sudden you start to see a drop in traffic and whatnot. So maintaining and watching your reputation online is critical these days, and it's an emerging technology, which is kind of clever too. So Frank, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, it's something that we only worried about before the internet. What the people in our neighborhood thought of us. Because since the beginning of time we relied on word of mouth. You know, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think Eve checked with anybody about the apple because she had no one to check with, and Adam was a dope anyway. So, but after that, everybody said, well, for example, Peter, you gave me some thoughts speaking this week. I don't even know if you know this, but about some new food regimen you're on, and I've been checking it out because I respect you. I know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and I am seriously considering adopting that food regimen that you're on because it makes sense. And I never would have heard about it had you not mentioned it. And now that it came from you, I can't wait to review it and try it out for myself. And it's the same. I downloaded a book this morning on Amazon that was recommended by one of the gurus I pay attention to. And the first thing I did was I went to the reviews. And I know they're gonna have five-star reviews from their friends. So I discount all of those. I go for the negative reviews and see if they're planted or not. And you can normally tell. And then I decide to buy a book. My wife and I were considering going to a new restaurant this past weekend. The first thing she did was she went to Yelp. She went to Yelp. So Phil. It's a fact of life. And those who ignore it are putting themselves in peril because it's the way people are doing business today, and you either embrace it or you get burned by it. So
It's interesting too. And Gordon, this might ring true with you as well. In 10, 15 years ago, we really didn't have the internet in place like it is today. Part of an evaluation of a company should be their online presence or lack thereof, and or negative online presence, because it can affect the business's success so dramatically, and it's getting even more so, I think, than less into this digital age, that we really, really have to include that, plus the new things that are out called CMOs, and that's at the C level, and their media, and from social media, and chief media officers, CMOs, and that's brand new. Brand new in the last, say, 5 to 7 years. You're starting to see that as a C level or corporate level type position. Gordon, do you see that in fact more and more stuff from a CEO standpoint, they're going to have to deal with their digital online presence?
Yeah, very much so. I'm very much impacted by it too, because when I was actively involved in running each of the 4 companies as CEO, I didn't have to bother with that because I had an MBA outside the corner office and a personal assistant and a private secretary. So I neglected. So I'm a good candidate for criticism in this regard, gentlemen. I'm a good candidate for what Peter's talking about. I'm experiencing that now. I'm having to transition, even to function as a semi-retired executive. I have to get more involved in any business I either invest in or work with. They have to get more involved in the digital process and the online, and just in general with technology. And if you don't, as Frank says, you're not going to survive.
And in the news lately, Frank, has been Home Depot. And if you don't think the digital security and how you deal with your online people and offline people and getting hacked can affect the brick and mortar business, go guess again, because those lines are really starting to blur quickly, I think, anyway. Frank?
Yeah, it is. But by the way, again, let me go back to something that they were talking about, niche markets, and you remind me of the Home Depot. 20 years ago, I was doing the coaching and consulting with CEOs, and I remember one CEO who I worked with. He was going to compete against Home Depot, and this is when Home Depot 20 years ago. You can imagine how big they were back then. Mm-hmm. And they said, you're nuts. How are you going to beat eBay, right? And he didn't compete in the ocean. Now listen to what he did. This is clever. He was based here in Santa Ana, which is a community here in Orange County, in the heart of Orange County, which has a lot of immigrants, Mexicans, Spanish-speaking people. And he said, I'm going to do what Home Depot is not doing. He said, I'm going to cater to the gentleman who gets up in the morning, rents his equipment for that day to go out and do a job, whether it be a cement mixer or whatever it was. And I said, and I remember somebody said, well, Home Depot does that. He says, no, they tolerate them. He says, I'm going to cater to them as my niche market. And gentlemen, he
Interesting.
built a $125 million a year business very profitably, catering to a niche market that Home Depot tolerated. Oh, they would do business with them, but you had to wait in line and so forth. No, they were his prime. No, he also got other business that Home Depot had, but he tolerated them. He picked his niche that was extremely profitable, extremely necessary, and he did extremely well. So again, and I thought of that because you mentioned Home Depot, Peter, and I thought about the niche market with Home Depot.
Yeah, the cool part about that is a big organization like Home Depot literally opened up the opportunity because they didn't do it well. And you can see that there was money there. And some clever entrepreneur jumped in and says, you guys, right answer, but you don't get a cigar. I'm going to go after doing it right, and there you go. So, I mean, even these big boys from Walmart and the rest of them, they start stuff, but they don't do it well. And as a consumer, if you keep your eye open, as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, you can certainly start stuff out that way. Very, very cool. Very cool.
And the problem that most small business owners, including me, would have made, the mistake I would have made, I would have gone and played in a Home Depot Ocean, and they would have squished me like a cockroach because I could not compete with them. This gentleman, I won't mention his name because it's confidential, but this gentleman played in his own river, and Home Depot couldn't compete with him in a river. And we talked about this with you, Peter. I think it was yesterday. One of the first, you talk about competition, we do the competition analysis. We find you find out where they are vulnerable. Find out where they're vulnerable. That's part of your analysis. So you do it online, and then you do the traffic that gets that business. So again, I think this is going to be a critical part of any startup's business plan. Is going to be how will you. Where's your? I guess the term should be. When we talked about where's your Waldo, this is now where's your river. Wherever
I think this is going to be this podcast will be named Yangtze. I think Yangtze. Interesting to note too. The digital world is so fast moving that like Phil and I were talking, I think the other day. Don't wait till you have a problem with your reputation to go fix it. Be proactive and start using that as part of your strategy play to put yourself out there. Now, with that, I'm going to lead into on the web. Half or 3/4 of the battle is just getting traffic to your site. Part of the cool thing about getting traffic to your site is something called the 7-box, 7-up box. I think, Phil, you had a different term for it. What was your term?
7-pack.
Yeah, 7-pack. So,
yes.
And for people that don't know what that is, basically, again, there's usually, for an industrial strength search for like plumbers or electricians, things like that, doctors, dentists, Google is clever enough to measure to monitor your IP address and know where you're at physically, and they deliver stuff that is local to some degree. However, not always together true. One of Phil's clients, a huge success story, when you put in Chicago dentist or dentist in Chicago, he's in the #1 position. Yeah, let me flip over and you can see this. He's in the top A position right here. Let me share my screen. Sorry. Actually, I don't have to. I've got it up there. But he's in the #1 position, and the way that happened, you can see everybody down the right-hand side and above him pay ads, and he happens to be sitting in there with 4.9 out of 5 reviews, 57 Google reviews. Thank you, Phil Kasich. But that's the power of some of the tools that Phil brings to bear, a new set of tools on the web that a lot of people don't know about, bring to bear to help us get that traffic in the funnel heading towards the website. And you can see, I think anyway, you can have a brick and mortar company that both Gordon and I are very familiar with, those types of things, but it's really, the power is shifting to the web faster than not. and how people are buying, how people are finding. They're not using the yellow pages as much anymore. They're using that smartphone and having not a responsive website, but a honest to God mobile site. Is a key strategy play because the people that use cell phones are usually halfway into the buying cycle. They're trying to solve a problem. They want it right now. And so that online presence is phenomenally important these days. Otherwise, you have an online brochure that nobody goes to. Now, anybody want to weigh in that before I go to the next piece of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind commenting and endorsing your comments and Frank's in that. To summarize and capsulize the comments made, really what we're talking about, I believe, is the competitive environment. It might be because you're an old dinosaur like me and you have a hard time doing the internet, but that could be come into the category of a competitive environment. Analyzing the competition, whatever that may be. It may be a state-thinking banker that won't extend you enough credit to buy your products, to build what you're building. Emphasize on every business plan that I'm involved in. I know that you do, Peter, and I'm sure Frank and Dick. You insist on thoroughly analyzing the competitive environment before they embark on developing the company, because if they don't do that, they're going to fail. That was it?
Absolutely. I'm just looking up something. Frank, if you want to weigh in whilst I'm looking up something, that's great.
Gordon, you talk about being a dinosaur. One of the, and I don't know if it was Jack Ma or if it was one of the other gentlemen I talked about in my previous twins, and they said, because of the advances in technology, there has never been a better time to start up a business than today. It is cheaper, it is faster, you have a lot more analysis at your fingertips, you can select your niche market, you can get your word out of there, have a good idea, have a decent website, and it's yours. I mean, this kid who got beat up by his dad in China and couldn't get into college and got rejected by Kentucky Fried Chicken is now the richest man in China. Okay, so, and by the way, he's 5 feet tall. He is 5 feet tall, grown man. It's 50 or 5 feet tall. So he's not a big man physically, but big man business-wise. And I think I am more excited today about what we're doing than I was 20 years ago. Much more excited.
Let me share my screen now that we're there. And this is let me know when everybody sees my Excel spreadsheet here.
Got it.
Okay. Basically, I have a personal injury attorney who I did an exact match URL to drive traffic to, but more importantly, and I'll explain that later, but more importantly, he paid me to do a competitive analysis. And each one of these big blocks here, looks like lots of data, there is, and I went to his competitors. Some he knew, some he didn't, and I rate them red being a definite competitor and green and yellow being not so much so. But basically, and I looked at their keywords, and this is going to glare Frank over, but I looked at their social media, Frank, and all of this stuff starts to tell me how really engaged are they with the internet. And also, Phil, you'll notice I also look for reviews, okay? And you can see that here they had no Google reviews. And so I'm looking down through all of this stuff to understand what I'm up against. And then coming up with a solution of how we're going to be different and command that niche. And the get back over here, conclusions. And here, hopefully everybody can see this. But the number one thing I came out of this competitive space with, and you can imagine, an injury, a personal injury attorney, very competitive space. And believe it or not, his biggest competitor happened to be Huntington Beach, which is a good, Frank, 2.5 hours away from us.
Right.
But they dominated the market out here because they did video. And Google loves video, served from YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. And so, it's very interesting that video was the biggest piece of the pie, which just said, our strategy to combat that is to have better video in a way, but podcasting, not just video, but take it to the next level. We're not going to play with just a couple of videos like they have on their site, but rather we'll have a whole podcast show. And then out of the 20 competitors, about 50% use social media. However, only 10% were real users. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you come away with that literally drives a strategy play that then you use all the various technologies like Phil's, like podcasting, like the rest of them, to fold into the strategy to make sure that they can, in fact, win and dominate their internet space. So that was a very, I think, telltale and interesting approach about competitive analysis. And you know, Gordon, you might want to weigh in on this. It might be more important now than ever before, with all of the tools and all the far-reaching things for in the digital world, for a brick and mortar company to really do and redo their competitive analysis every 3 to 6 months. What do you think of that?
I would agree wholeheartedly, and there's Frank, yourself, and Dick, and Phil that could all contribute to the growth of a company. Just being on this podcast with all of you, I have learned that if I need some help in helping a company grow, I can call on any one of you depending on the challenge that the company has. So I think you're right on, Peter, to underline this emphasis of getting people to work together and grow their business and pull from each other's resources.
Yeah, Phil, did you, when you worked with your client, and I'm going to say the one that got 122 new patients in 6 months using your technology, did you ever do a more wider search of competitive-wise, or did you just narrow it down to what do we got to do to make you get more clients in your space? What do you do with that?
Of course, we have to provide some competitive research because otherwise, why would you want to improve your reputation? For example, if you're in a group of people that have zero to none, feedback online, there's really no advantage to get going on a service like the one I provide right away. So in a major metropolitan city like Chicago, where I'm from, it would be very, very rare to find anybody in a specific category of businesses to be without any type of reviews. Yes, it's true. There are some businesses that still to this day haven't asked their patients, customers, or clients to review them online. I guess they're going by the let's hope and see method. Whereas, I provide good service every day. Well, just maybe I hope that one of my clients or customers is going to go online and leave a good review. But I can tell you this: when you implement that type of a strategy, the odds are against you because more people are going to go online on their own will to leave a bad review. All right. So if you don't ask that person to leave a review, you're leaving it to risk that they'll leave you a bad review instead. In order to get back on track with, is it important to scope a competitive analysis? Yes, it's very, very, very important because we need to know how long it's going to take to overcome one of your competitors. Say, for example, when this client, Dr. Presley, started with me, he had 3 Google reviews. 3. His closest competitor had 27.
Whoa.
All right. And everyone else had maybe 17, 11, what have you. But still, everyone was maybe half off from achieving the 27 goal. Once we got him up to 57 reviews, and his nearest competitor has, I think, 47, but not so great of an average. He's positioning himself to be the best choice in town. All right, and that's who people want to do business with. They want to do business with
Sure.
the best choice in town. Everybody, no matter where you go, we have what? We have options. We have no one's the only dentist around. No one's the only restaurant around. All right, if someone wants Italian food, they want to go out. Guess what? Here in Chicago, there's probably about 1,200 Italian restaurants that you can choose from. All right.
Mm-hmm.
and because we have these options, we have to make sure that we're really putting our best foot forward and giving reasons to those individuals searching for that type of business, to give a reason for them to choose you over your competitors, right? So obviously
Right.
the competitor that has 0 reviews, that consumer just passes them up. They're not giving any reason whatsoever, and they could have been in business for 20, 35 years, and it's very common. I mean, I work with a lot of prospects that, they always tell me, well, I don't need to do anything online. I've been in business for 35 years, and really, well, you're okay to just give up and defeat yourself to the competition just because your main issue is you don't want to take the next steps, but your competitors are. So, I give that type of business maybe 10 years before they're out. All right, and
Right.
we can
Well-
tell, helping this one client achieve that goal of reaching 122 new patients in just 6 months. That's dramatically changed his life. I mean, now he has the choice to invest in a winery or purchase another vacation property or even hire a couple more guests to do the work that he usually did. And this frees up more time. But the best part is that he now has the options to do any one of these things because of the revenue that those 122 new patients brought in.
Right. The other thing that I think too, the more that I'm looking at this, Gordon, do you have any idea what the shift is now with the CEOs to deal with their online reputations, their digital footprints? I mean, is it still, do you think, matter of, oh gosh, I know we got to do that, but they don't really understand the importance?
Yeah, many instances. Once you get to someone, that's part of the counseling I do. I turn them on to people like you gentlemen that are on this podcast, because I'm not equipped to lecture or discuss. I can go up and down the balance sheet and help them with their marketing and financials, but I am not qualified to coach them on the technology part of their business. And I always emphasize to those ones that don't want to do it, and they don't want to do it probably because they're apprehensive and they're not knowledgeable. So it's our job, and I would challenge all of us to think of ways that we can break through this barrier so that we can market these very fine services and technology to the appropriate people. There's lots of them around. Peter, you and I have met a few in the past month. Dick, Frank, and I'm sure Phil has met those that resist it because they say, well, I'm doing it my way, but then they're all alone on the highway, aren't they, when they adopt that attitude. So it's breaking through the attitude and the old thinking, and I think a lot of it is fear. And I describe when I go into this topic with them, I said fear is really false evidence appearing
That appears real.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a challenge to break through, and you brought up an excellent point. And anyone that's listening to this may get some guidance from you.
Yeah, I think too, a lot of times the CEOs they just don't understand the internet space because they kind of skip their generation, so to speak. And yet you don't want to listen to the brand new young newbies who got to go everywhere and be everything and ADD and this and that. So there's a real challenge, I think, of having a good brick and mortar presence as well as a good internet presence and integrating those two efforts together. That's got to be a bigger challenge today than it was 20 years ago, for sure.
And it's a necessity too.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely a requirement. You cannot ignore your online presence. It just you do that at your own great peril. Right. So it's like Frank says, they're going to vote with their cell phone, and if you make it difficult to use or you make it dumb and it's not there and it's hard to use, they're just going to go to your competitor that is easy, which cleverly brings me around to my next topic for discussion, is that driving traffic is certainly one thing, and it's probably the most important piece of the puzzle is to get traffic to your site. Once they're on your site, conversion is where our mind has to go. And what conversion basically means, if you get 100 visitors to your site, you're going to convert a number of those visitors to clients. One of three ways. You're either going to ask them to call you, they're going to ask them to email you, or they're going to buy a product. Those are your three things, and you have to have call to action. Tell them what you want them to do to get there. And so many people leave their websites up to these gorgeous website builders who can build you a gorgeous website, but has nothing to do with marketing or, as Gordon and I always like to talk about, asking for the sale. Right, Gordon? You got to ask them to buy something. You got to get them going forward, you know?
Close them,
And so, and Gordon, how many people are afraid to ask for the sale? I mean, you run into that every day, right?
Yeah, they don't do the spade work usually that allows them to convince the prospective purchaser to nod their head rather than shake their head, and you know you've got them in a position where they're a buyer, and many people go past that point in the presentation, and therefore they lose the sale. So it's timing, preparing a good presentation, and making them feel something. That's very important. I'm not a touchy-feely person, but if you can get to where it hurts, the magic that I talked about, going through and peeling the onion, when you get to that point, then they will feel something, and you say, you know, are you ready? Are you convinced now that you have these improvements to make in your business and that you can utilize this technology? And invariably you'll get a yes. And by that time you have your order pad out and sign them up and tell them to get their credit card out.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. So the conversion aspect of a website becomes the more dominant factor once you get traffic there. And of course, I'm a big fan of video. Video gets them excited. Video's sexy. They just want to watch. They don't want to read. They want to watch. They want to push a button. They want that sell. They want that instant gratification. They want that download right now. You know, and the more a company can position their website to do that, I think the better. Frank?
I agree. The only thing is on video, and video is becoming more and more popular. Make sure your video is entertaining and educational.
Yep, top quality.
Educate them enough to stick around and give them value so they say it was worth my time. One without entertaining with no value is a comedy show. Education with no entertainment is PBS.
Hopefully they don't sue us for that comment. Yeah, no, completely agree. I think the other piece about video, if your video is so slick, then they know it's a sales thing too. You know, it should be real.
That's bad. It's got to be real. It's got to be real.
You know, part of this closing the sale, Dick, I'm going to throw you on the hot seat. I think your infographic really is the call to action in your networking. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a very key part of it. Yes, so you have to be able to show them something visually to grab them right away. As you know, it's not a video, but at least it has a visual effect to it that gets them to want more, and that's really, in a networking environment, really all you can ask for on that initial meeting is get them to want to find out more about your product.
Yeah, no kidding. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, we're up on our hour. Anybody got any closing thoughts they want to share?
No, we're good.
Oh, all right, then we'll say good night.
Very informative. Good meeting.
Good night, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Everybody hang on, and we'll stop the broadcast.